right. We got Josh. Welcome everybody. We're just waiting on everybody to get in. Let me see who else we got. We got Josh. Who is this? That's Mike. Josh. Casey, we should have two more people for sure. That may be. Nope, that's Mike.
They'll keep rolling in, but if you want to start in just a couple minutes, we'll just see how many people keep trickling in. So,
thank you guys for jumping on this morning. To all of our SMs, this is just to kind of let you guys know how this is going to go down, since we're in a broad range of everything from agriculture to woodworking to, we've got welders. So what's going to happen is Mr. Salatin is going to go over some basic agriculture or business principles of themselves. And then what we're going to do is kind of open it up for questions so that, you can kind of get some information that is tailored down to what your specific operation looks like. We got Jerome. How are you doing, bub? All right. Let's give it just a few more minutes. I think, again, if you're just now joining us, thank you very much for joining on. We're going to give it just a couple of more minutes. I cannot hear you right now, Jerome. Not yet.
You need me to... right. Good.
Yeah, I think so. Jerome. It's comedy. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I've been called everything from Jaeger to...
Hold on. All right.
I'm military, man. I've been called everything from Jaeger to Alphabet to anything you can think about.
Yeah, you do have a nice last name, brother. Yeah. I think we got everybody that we're going to get just now. Chris Borja is just going to have to join late. I think he's having trouble getting the Zoom to work. But so everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is number 2 of our guest speaker Zoom series. And I'm really excited and proud to have the honor to have Mr. Joel Salatin on. For those guys that don't know much about him, he is one of the leading minds in today's sustainable agriculture industry. I've seen him speak on everything from agricultural tourism to beef cattle to pigs. But today we're going to have him jump in here and kind of give some basic principles on business, and then we're going to move into questions. So without any further delay, I would like to introduce Mr. Joel Salatin, and Mr. Salatin, you can take it from there.
Thank you, BJ. Well, it's great to be with you all, and let me say at the top right now, thank you all for your service. It's a big deal, and we thank you for that. So, because of the diversity of the kinds of enterprises that are engaging with this today, I'd like to start with some very, very basic business stuff. And that starts with a mission statement. Do you know your mission statement? Can you put your mission statement in one sentence? Here at Polyface, our mission statement is to develop agricultural prototypes that are economically, ecologically, and emotionally enhancing and facilitate their duplication throughout the world. I can state that anywhere, any place, anytime. And that needs to be on your mirror, at your desk, on your refrigerator. Here's the thing, if you don't know where you're going, you can't get other people to go with you. Nobody, you don't say, hey, I'm going somewhere, who wants to go with me? everybody gets in the car and then asks, well, it doesn't matter where we're going. I'm just going. Nobody does that, right? So you got to have a direction. You got to know where you're going, and a mission statement does that. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Alan Savory, the holistic resource management guru. And I think if there's one, if I could boil down his contribution to humanity in one thing, it is this single sentence mission statement. So that defines, and you can have different mission statements. You can have a mission statement for your business, one for your life, one for your, your family, your marriage. You can have different mission statements, but for your business, you've got to have a real clear business statement, because a lot of times our businesses are defined as much by what we say no to as much as what we say yes to. You can't do everything. The world is full of opportunities. And so if you don't have a laser focused direct mission statement on where you're going, everybody's got an idea for you. I think you ought to do this. I think you ought to do that. Oh, if I were you, I'd do this. And we get jacked up and jerked by every conceivable temptation to run over here and do this opportunity, run over here, do this opportunity. And so a lot of our success depends on saying no to the stuff that's going to pull us off of our of where we're, where we want to go. Number two, I think, is to know what your strengths are. I'm sure many of you have been through the whole, the Strengths Finder type of, personality character quest. And, the fact is, some of us are extroverts, some are introverts, some are messy, some are cleanies, some are starters, others are finishers. We have real different, some of us are visual, some of us are verbal. Some of us want to be around people. Some of us are energized by people. We're in a crowd or we're doing a presentation and we come off high as a kite. Other people find people draining. You do a presentation, you come off like a wet dish rag, right? And man, I just want to go veg and sleep. And so knowing your strengths and weaknesses is really important, because the truth is, what I'm getting at is that business success requires a skill set that's broader than one pair of legs. We love to think, man, I can just soldier through this and I can get this done on my own. But especially you all who have been in military teams, you need everything from the radio guy to the sniper to the the bridge builder to the logistics guy, right? To the heavy equipment mechanic. It takes a team, and farming tends to attract people. I think tends to attract people who are, kind of whatever, self-made individualists. And so what happens is we slog on and are very inefficient at a lot of things because we're too stubborn or short-sighted or whatever to build a team. And when I say build a team, I don't mean these people are necessarily on payroll. You'd be surprised if you really are going somewhere sacred and noble. You'd be and you clearly message that, clearly articulate it. You'd be surprised how many people want to join you on that mission, and they'll do it just because they want to do it. How many vocations and how many missions in life are truly sacred and noble? Most vocations are, I'm just getting a paycheck. I'm just doing my job. I'm working for the man. I'm, whatever it is. And so attracting people, magnetizing people to your enterprise wells up. It comes to you as a result of articulated passion, as a result of knowing where you're going. Okay, so team building is really important. And when people ask me if you would go back and make one change on what you've done with your with Polyface Farm, my answer is always, I would have gotten partners sooner. And again, I'm not talking about necessarily paid partners. I'm just talking about, where am I weak? Let's be honest about where I'm weak, and let me find people who are strong where I'm weak. And they can be part-timers. They can be on a commission, performance based. They don't have to be. We don't like anybody to be hourly wages around here. We want people to be performance based. Which brings me now to the next major point, and that is margins. You've got to know your margins. Now there's your overheads, and then there's your direct margins, which are what we call enterprise margins. In other words, there's stuff you have to do. I mean, you have to live, you have to pay taxes. There are things that you have that are just that you would have whether you were in business or not. And then there are things that you do because you're in that business. If you're in a cut flower business, your pruning shears are not overheads. Those are a direct, if you weren't in a cut flower business, you wouldn't have pruning shears. Okay. So direct costs are things that you have to buy, ongoing or infrastructure that you have to buy because of that enterprise. If you're raising chickens, chicken feed is a direct cost. If you weren't raising chickens, you wouldn't have that cost. Okay. So you have your enterprise margins, and then you have to make enough from your enterprise margins. They have to all add up to be able to handle your overall overhead, which is going to be salary. It's going to be insurance, taxes, your basic overheads that are there whether you do anything or not. So you haven't made a profit until you've not only made a margin, but you've also compensated for your generic overheads. Now, the only way to increase your profitability is to increase your margin. Well, if you have a profitable margin, you can increase profitability by increasing turnover. So if you have a positive margin on 500 items, if you can do 600 items, then you're going to increase, your profitability by turnover. The other way to increase your margin or increase your profit margin is to either increase your price or reduce your expense. So you've got turnover, you've got expense, and you've got income. Those are the three items you're working with on margin. Now, how do you determine if you are making margin? And here's the biggest thing. Farmers, we don't put our labor in as time, okay? So I'd say that the fourth major thing I want to just touch you about here as we start is time and motion studies. Time and motion studies are the foundation of industry, of business. And farmers, we notoriously don't do this, partly because we're the world's worst record keepers often, but also because we just don't want to take the time to fool with it. But time and motion studies are how we tease out the amount of labor necessary for a given project. Why would we want to know that? A, we want to know, is it actually paying my time, or would I do better spending my time doing something else? So that's one question. The second thing is that it allows you to put a value on that particular project so that over time you can replace yourself with somebody else doing that project. If you don't know how much time, if you don't know the value of collecting and cartoning up a dozen eggs, 2 years down the road, if you want to go and add another enterprise or do something else, what we call the $100 an hour part of your business, and you want to give over the gathering and cartoning eggs to somebody else, if you don't have a time benchmark for that, there's no way that you can assign value to that project. And so at our farm, we have benchmark time and motion for everything. 60 seconds to move a chicken shelter. 30 seconds to eviscerate a chicken. I mean, we can just go down the line. We have SOPs, standard operating procedures, and time and motions. Now listen, all of you guys learned this stuff in the military. The military does this all the time, right? You know, how long does it take to clean your rifle, right? You know, how long does it, you know, we do this time and motion, but for some reason, when we come to farming, we think somehow that, oh, well, because I'm a farmer and the world needs me to grow their food, well, I'm just going to make a profit because I'm so important the world will starve if I don't exist, you know. And we kind of come into it a little bit with this kind of altruistic chip on our shoulder that that I'm entitled to success because I'm such a special person that I'm feeding everybody, you know. And we got to get over that. This is a business like anybody. Yes, it is more than a business, but it is also a business. And the final thing I'll just say here is as we open and we'll go to questions, is that as much as possible, we want our businesses to put equity, to not have equity in stuff, in depreciable stuff, infrastructure, things like that. We want our equity to be in skill, information, and relationship. And if the foundation of our business, if our equity, if our wealth train is non-monetary, if it's skill, information, and relational, a bank can't foreclose on it. We don't have to borrow for that. And even if the economy collapses and the wheels fall off of our culture, nobody can take away your skill, your knowledge, or your relationships. And I think in these, if I may close this way, this kind of pre-ramble, that as we head into very uncertain times with this whole pandemic and COVID-19 and all this stuff where we are, I don't know about you guys, but you know, I'm seeing everything from it's not going to be a blip to the wheels are going to fall off and we're all going to be in survival mode in a year. And I'm sure you're seeing the same kind of stuff. And all I'll say is that I am doing everything I can to invest today's dollars in non-monetary skill, information, and relationship. Because regardless of what happens to cash, skill, information, and relationship are gonna function. You know, they can function in a barter economy. They can function in community. All that can function. So you want to surround yourself. Here's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. You want to surround yourself with people who can do one of three things. They can either grow something, build something, or repair something. And if you invest in a close-knit community that can grow, build, or fix things, regardless of what happens in the future, you're going to have as much resilience as possible this side of eternity. That's probably enough for a good opening pre-ramble. And BJ, I'll let you kind of see where we are at this point.
All right, we do have some questions pouring in, and guys, I want to, if you can listen to me, down at the bottom of your screen, if you move your mouse where it says mute, stop video, participants, and chat, if you want to open up your chat box, guys, you can send them in, and we'll run through those with Joel and I. Or if you have something that's too long to type, go over to reactions and raise your hand. That's just the way. That's the way we'll have to do it. So, first question I got is from Joshua Burnside. He's the goat rancher up in Idaho. On the time thing, how can you get across to someone that it takes X amount of time to do this quote unquote project and not more time than it's actually taking them? Which
Oh,
I,
what a great, yeah, what a
yes.
great question. All right. So that's where you have to do it yourself and create your own benchmark. Nobody cares as much or is probably as functionally efficient and effective as you are, the owner, the guru, right? And so you have to establish those benchmarks. Nobody, listen, if you can go out there and show a person, hey, I can set up a cross fence, take down a cross fence, move a water trough, and I can do this in 30 minutes, day after day after day. Sometimes it's 25 minutes, sometimes it's 35, but my benchmark is 30 minutes. Nobody can argue when they sit and watch you do that. Nobody can argue, well, yeah, it does take 30 minutes. All right. The reason that's so important is because that establishes value. Here's the thing. Let me give you the scenario. If you're paying somebody by the hour, and they take 60 minutes to do what you do in 30 minutes, then that cost just doubled in getting that particular project done. So here's a typical thing. Go move the goats. All right. So you've got SOPs. Like at our farm, we have a go tote. The go tote has a water valve, a couple of extra insulators, some twine, some wire, pliers, hammer. It's so that if something's broken when you get out there, you got stuff to fix it. All right. So you've got an hourly person. Hourly person goes out and they're out there 10 minutes and you see this dust cloud where they're rolling back in with the ATV, right? And because they forgot the go tote. And then they go out another, back out 10 minutes, they grab the go tote, and they go out and you're sitting there looking at your clock. Just cost me 20 minutes because that guy was negligent to get the go tote. And now you got to have this conversation with yourself. Do I say something? Do I dock his pay? Is this bad enough of infraction? Do I fire him? You got all this tension in your head about. Now, compare that to the person who is getting paid $25 to move the goats. That guy goes out, he's negligent, doesn't take the go tote. He's got to come back again to get the go tote. Guess what? There's no tension now because he's going to be late for his date tonight and it's his fault. And he's going to remember that go tote tomorrow because he doesn't get paid another dime for his cost of time for getting that go tote. That's what I'm talking about. So when you structure your pay based on performance, because you've established benchmarks of performance, then suddenly you attract people who love to see if they can outdo the performance. When you are just hiring people by the hour, it's easy to attract people who aren't incentivized to try to figure out a way to do it more efficiently, to do it better, or to come to your benchmark. So that's where the time and motion comes in. And I think it's how you structure your compensation package. So at our place, for example, we've got people, moving egg mobiles, raising chickens, eggs, broilers, moving cows, moving pigs. Everything like cows are $35 per move. Pigs are $8 per group. Eggs are $1 a dozen. So there's no hourly time. And you know what? If you forget something or you didn't take care of things and it suddenly caught, you didn't, for example, clean the nest boxes. So now the eggs are real dirty and it takes you an extra 20 minutes to put the eggs away. Guess what? If you're getting paid by the dozen, tomorrow you're going to put fresh hay in the nest boxes so you got clean eggs.
Absolutely. First of all, that was a great answer. Josh said that you answered that exactly how you needed it. I got Mark Tucker that wants to ask a question. Casey, if you don't mind, go ahead and unmute him. Mark, can you, there you go. Go ahead, brother.
There we go. Thanks for having me today, and thank you, Mr. Saladin, for taking their time to come on and talk to a bunch of knuckleheads like us.
Absolutely.
I've got a few questions, sir. My first one, obviously, I think anybody that has come into farming or ranching of any sorts here in the last couple decades is very familiar with you and your practices. Yeah, I've got a few questions, so I'm going to start off with my first one. And my first one is what is your take? It seems like not even amidst of all this COVID stuff, but society in general has really latched onto this idea, and I've read plenty of articles about man-made meat and science-based food sources, these vegetable alternatives, and you see it, whether it's like that's the in vogue thing, or even, watching like Burger King commercials. Everybody's trying to promote this idea of vegetable alternatives as if meat is somehow hard to come by, or meat's just not fitting that bill anymore. When we talk about small heritage, slow-grown food, how in fact do these alternatives potentially affect us in the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years? As I'm sure you have your thumb on it more so with the size and the scale of your operation than a guy like me who, runs 20 hogs a year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, the whole fake meat thing, the whole lab grown meat thing, I think it's going to be a fad, because the nutrition is simply not there. The bioavailable nutrition is simply not there, and you cannot replace in a lab or with plant material. You cannot replace the complexity of a steak or a pork chop or what the animal does. Now, yes, right now it's in vogue, right? But maybe you don't know, McDonald's last week stopped their fake meat trial. They got out of it. They said no more. We got out of the business. And I don't know if Burger King will follow suit, but my point is that the cost of that, and as it proliferates more and more, I mean, Diana Rogers has just launched a book. It's coming out next week. Sacred Cow. I can hold it up right here. Sacred. Can you see that? Sacred Cow. How about that? You see that? Sacred Cow. I've got a pre-pub copy of it, but it answers all those questions. She's a registered dietitian, and if you're in the meat business, everybody who's in the meat business needs to get this book. She goes through every moral, physical, science, nutrition argument, water usage, methane, burping, farting, I mean, the whole deal, and just and lays it out. It's a fantastic book for those of us who aren't scientists. Now, with that said, you asked about when you're in the small heritage, slow grown foods kind of thing. That was a little bit of a red flag to me. It doesn't have to be either extreme. It doesn't have to be either fake meat or heritage breeds. We don't do heritage breeds at Polyface. I think you don't have to be on either extreme of that pendulum. So we do kind of regular breeds, and one of the reasons is because the larger the breeds, like pigs that get to 300 pounds instead of the Kune and the Mangalista and all that, they're exotic, they're cool, but they're very small, and so your processing price gets very, very expensive. And price isn't everything, but it is something. And also, I mean, when you go to Heritage Chicken, for example, and you don't have that double breast, now you got to try to sell people on a razor breast, dark meat, long cook time because it's tougher and not as tender as the younger stuff. My mentor, Alan Nation, founder of Stockman Grass Farmer, always told me, he said, in marketing, your customers will only let you be so weird. You can either be a nudist or you can be a Buddhist. But if you're a nudist Buddhist, I mean, you're just too weird. Nobody will buy from you. And so we try to stay with the more non-exotic, more orthodox breeds, but raise them completely differently, and use 1950s phenotypes. Cattle that are smaller. Our cows are 1,000 pounds. They're not 1,500 pounds. Pigs that'll put on fat, that sort of thing, and try to kind of hit a little bit of the middle of the road here. And we find that makes it marketable, but not so strange and exotic that it becomes price discriminatory and so hard to sell.
Great
No.
answer on that.
Thank you so much. And again, I can just I've got a few questions. I don't want to step on anybody.
No,
But-
go ahead, man.
No, but Mr. Saladin brought up like once you said with regards to the types of the breeds of pigs that you use, it definitely struck a chord. I'm a guy that has only been doing this for a few years. My mentor is a guy that's been doing it for 20 plus years. And we stuck specifically with the red hogs, red wattles, Tamworth, had fabulous success with both those breeds, mixing of those breeds. Of course, genetics is a big thing that he really impressed upon me. Something that a lot of farmers don't track is the genetics. And we had great success. And so this past year, we decided to give a shot to the Mangalista Large Black Cross.
Okay.
Again, we started running into problems when you're talking about the bottom line, when you're talking about margins, when you're talking about butcher fees. You got customers that are very used to and love the flavor profile of the Tamworth, and now we come back with kind of the same pricing schematics. And now instead of 25% loss, we're talking 45% loss. And I mean, what does that mean to them? I'm paying $1,250 for this non-GMO antibiotic-free hog, where I used to be able to fill my freezer. Now it's halfway filled.
Right.
So that's one thing that we're kind of running into now, sir, is the give and take and finding that middle ground, because it's clear, like the Mangalista meat is remarkably different. I really like the fact that you talked about the way that you raise the product, the type of environment, the type of feed, and all that stuff is very specific, and it's worked out very well for us. But again, it's finding that middle ground of we're talking about the difference of 50 to 60 pounds of meat per hog.
Yeah, and the customer sees it in a heartbeat, and then you're starting to run interference for yourself, handling some complaints and trying to explain different things, and there's just so much emotional energy in that. You can't look. It's got to be better. It's got to be different. We do that with production, but altruism does not pay the bills, and good enough is good enough. And sometimes we can get off on some altruistic kick. Well, I'm going to do this perfection out here, and a lot of times going from 90% good enough to 100% perfection doubles the price of the product. In cattle breeding, for example, it takes as much money to move a cow herd in pregnancy to move from 80% to 100% pregnancy as it does from 0 to 80% pregnancy. So in general, you do a lot better not feeding those cows as perfectly as you could, and dealing with 80% of pregnancy than getting all the citrate supplements and crutches in order to get them up there into the 95, 96% pregnancy. You're actually not making more money. You're actually making less money than you would if you backed off to a less expensive, husbandry protocol and ran them cheaper.
Right. No, awesome. Thank you so much for your insight. And that makes sense, because this has been something that my wife and I both that are both very much invested in the business are looking at is,
Sure.
With that law, some of our base customers that have been with us since Jump Street are legitimately like, yeah, it tastes good, but I've got a family of 7, and now I'm bringing 50% less meat, and I believe in the clean, the method in which you raise your hogs, and we love the taste, but when push comes to shove, dollars are dollars.
Yeah.
So
Well, listen. Yeah. Listen. I would encourage you. If you really like what these Mangalitsa crosses are doing for you, but you don't like the negative feedback from some people, niche your niche. There's nothing wrong with niching your niche. So right now at our farm, we have both the double-breasted Cornish cross, industrial genetic broiler, okay, but we also have a heritage rooster that we hatch ourselves. They're Rhode Island Reds, Barred Rocks, they're old heritage breeds, and they got razor breast. Now the fat is yellow. I mean, the taste is out of this world, but we sell 1,000 of them versus 40,000 of the Cornish cross.
Right.
But for our gourmands, for our people that are true gourmands, man, they love that Asian, almost Asian style jungle fowl. Okay. And so niche your niche. We had some people that were really concerned about soybeans, soy free. And so last year we did one batch of 1,000 broilers with no soybeans. And we charged extra. We charged extra for that. We charged extra for those heritage roosters. Stewing hens, you can get a stewing hen. So we have chicken. We have regular Cornish cross at one price. For a higher price, you can get soybean free, regular broilers. For a higher price, you can get a heritage rooster, and then you can get a stewing hen. So there are 4 options, and that allows you to not have any arguments. And the people who are savvy, gourmand savvy, they can pick what they want, and you can be a niche to each one of them. So there's no thing that says you've always got to be, pardon the pun, whole hog on just one option. You can offer a couple of different options, and that'll actually broaden your base and diversify your portfolio.
absolutely. And that makes perfect sense. And we hadn't even thought about that. We looked at it, the all-in game of, we either have to run, okay, well, we're either going to run pure Mangalistas this year, or we're just going to go back to Tamworth, and
Right.
It's you don't have to do that. And I love your take.
No.
Yeah. So in the interest of moving forward a little bit, guys, I got to get some of these questions from the chat out. So Joel, I'm curious on this question too. This is coming from Josh, different Josh than the first one. Regarding sales, if a potential buyer requests a quote from you and others, you give them a quote, maybe chat a bit via email, but how long do you wait on following up, and what is considered too aggressive? That's a fantastic sales 101 question right there.
Yeah. So what you do is when you make your quote, you ask them, thank you for giving us the honor and privilege of quoting this price for you. Please confirm receipt of this quote, and when it would be appropriate for me to follow up with you.
Wow. All right. Short and
Put the
sweet.
ball back in their court. You let them carry the reins of their destiny.
So just to kind of piggyback off of what Mr. Salatin just said. I used to be a sales manager, and that's what we call a soft close. Yes. When you're like, hey, you know, when do you want me to follow up with you? That's putting the ball right back in their court. Great answer, Mr. Salatin. This one comes from Cameron. He's the hay guy out of Arizona. He wants to know, what would you look for in a feed supplier?
A feed supplier. I'm assuming he's asking for forage or grain. Forage.
So maybe both with him. I know that he's spending some high quality hay right now, but Casey, if you want to unmute Cameron so that he can kind of put his spin on this question for me. Or
So I just asked to unmute you. There he goes.
okay, Cameron, you want to go ahead and kind of put your spin on that question, sir?
Yeah, for sure. Howdy. Sorry, you got the boy running around in the background, but yeah. So I'm new, kind of trying to figure out my niche, and there's a potential for a lot of, I guess you'd say, stock, beef supply and whatnot down here in Arizona with the ranchers. And I'm curious as to what sort of entices you to go with one supplier versus the other.
Okay, so yeah, so what entices me is what are they doing ecologically? Are they building soil or draining or eroding soil? What are they doing biologically? Are they growing more earthworms or reducing earthworms? What kind of are they using? Any chemicals? Not chemicals. Are they using compost instead of chemicals? Look, you guys are all ex-Marines, right? So you don't mind being challenged or talked to directly. So let me just say that in general, I think a forage business or a hay business is an impossible ecological business, because you're removing all the biomass from the land. And I don't know, I'm glad to be taught, but I don't know a way to remove all of the biomass routinely from a piece of land without destroying the soil and destroying the fertility over time. It might take a little while, but you're going to do it over time. And so I think as far as I can tell, the only way to close that loop is to run your biomass through, preferably an herbivore, so that you can actually recycle it. Otherwise you're mining the land. And so I look for those kind of closed loops when I'm looking for a supplier. I don't buy forage, and we don't sell forage. As a policy, we don't buy it, we don't sell it, because we want the biomass to be consumed on the land that grew it. Now, grain is a little different, because you're only removing a small portion of the plant. So if there's a very good carbon residue program in place, you can absolutely grow grain without depleting the soil. But you have to have a really good, I like longer stemmed varieties. So the plant to grain ratio is different. And so there's some sort of an ecological cycle loop in that.
Wow, that is a fantastic. There's no way I could have formulated that response. Thank you, Joel. So we have one more question, and then Mark Tucker, we'll get back to your question if you don't mind. This one comes from Joshua Burnside again, and then we have another question that kind of hits this here as well. So there's two questions here from two different people. Josh wants to know, so when you're starting out and you're funding all of your startup, you've purchased land, so that was most of all the money you had saved, and now the situation presents itself as I do. How do you get going when you can't seem to get help on things like, i.e., irrigation, growing a pasture. And so to kind of give you a little bit of background on Mr. Burnside's problem is I introduced him to the local NRCS chain, and they're really giving him a lot of a lot of pushback on helping him with a pivot and things like that. So I think what he's wanting to know is there any shortcuts to getting water there? Because where he lives is in the high desert of Idaho. And they only have so much water per year. And I just, the way that I would like to have this answered is, what can he do to offset some of that arid climate?
Ooh,
Yes, sir. It's a toughie.
well, it is a toughie. One of the problems is you can't unring a bell. And so I think one of the issues here is that the money was put into the land, and anyone that reads my stuff knows that I'm a big proponent of not buying land so that you preserve your nest egg for the infrastructure you need to put on it to make the land productive. There's enough land available. There's land available all over the country because farmers are aging out. They're dying. They're retiring. They're aging out, and what we have is a shortage of land stewards. We've got a huge successional transition going on here, and so if you're a young person and you're savvy and you've got energy and you've got whatever excitement and you're ready to go, land is available. And so I always encourage folks, don't put your money in the land. Find land on the cheap that you can rent. And some places you can do something on an existing land base without paying anything. I mean, pastured poultry, that's one of my favorite ones, of course. But I know people that are putting pastured poultry enterprises on orchards, wheat ground, great, cattle plan. Tell you what, I'll fertilize this 50 acres for you with poultry, and you don't have to pay me anything. And you go onto the place and you don't pay any rent, and you fertilize their place, and you get a free place to be, and with a mobile farm infrastructure. So unfortunately, it's hard to unring a bell. And so my concern here for Joshua is that the nest egg got sucked down in a land base that now doesn't leave enough wiggle room to capitalize the infrastructure and make the land base produce. A land base without infrastructure is worthless as a farmer. The only thing that makes a land base have any value as a farmer is what a farmer brings to the land base. Absent the farmer, the land is just a wilderness area. It's a nothing, and so if you can figure out a way to piggyback with somebody and hold on to your nest egg, that's the thing. And man, I don't have an answer for everybody. I mean, I don't know your situation exactly. But I know that dry country has a lot of limitations, and sometimes you have to go where it's just not quite so hard. And I mean, let's take the land to cow ratio, for example. Where I am here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, farmland is selling for $5,000 an acre, and with extremely good grazing management like we do here, we can run 1 cow per acre. Now the average here is 4 acres per cow, but we're able to get 1 cow per acre because of our grazing management. Okay, so that's a $5,000 to 1 cow ratio. All right. Well, let's think about let's take Idaho as an example. Idaho, maybe you can buy land there in the desert for, I'm just going to say, $1,000 an acre. And, but it takes 10 acres to run one cow. And so there, even though the land is 1,000 instead of 5,000, the land to cow capitalization cost is, instead of being 5,000 to 1 here, it's 10,000 to 1 there. That's what we call the difference in hard land and easy land. And when it comes to farming, those kind of nuances, it's important to know where to go. I always tell people it's a whole lot better to buy 10 acres next to an urban center than buy 500 acres where it's 100 miles to a Coke machine. I mean, if you need customers and you're wanting sales, it's a lot better to have a very small place next to an urban center where there's a market than it is a much bigger place way far away where nobody will come. It's a whole different set of dynamics. The fact is, you've been told, oh, you can do anything you want to do. No, you can't. Forget that, guys. You can't do anything you want to do. None of us can do everything we want to do or anything we want to do. We're all constrained by context, by resources, by family, by expectations, by our own weaknesses, by our own desires. And so we've got to get over this thing that we've been sold as bill of goods. That I know it's well intentioned, trying to get people to, you can do whatever you want to do. No, you can't do everything. You can't do whatever you want to do. I could want to play in the NBA as much as anybody on the planet, but I'm never going to play in the NBA. I'm uncoordinated, I'm short, and I'm fat. Okay, I'm never going to play in the NBA. All right, no matter how much I wanted to. So you have to think about what's doable. What can I do? Where can I go? And what's actually doable, and pare down so that you actually do get something, so you have a plan that works. Otherwise, you get into a situation where you have a plan that doesn't work for any number of reasons. And I wish I could give a better answer for this, but I think honesty is the best answer here. And you might have to sell and start over, as awful as that may sound. There are I've talked to farmers every day that are $5 million in debt, and they're living this great place. They got rain, they've got everything going for them. They're $5 million in debt, and they're trying to turn their ship around. And I say, what you need to do is sell half your property, and you'll be able to make a profit on the other half, but you've got to get out from under the debt first. And, nobody likes to hear that, but the fact is you got to have wiggle room. There are a few things that are constraining as not having wiggle room financially or physically to be able to leverage a piece of land that you get control of, whether you own it, lease it, borrow it, collaborate on it, or whatever it is you want to do.
Man, that was a fantastic answer to that question. Mark, I know we said we were going to go with you first, brother, but Jeff Young has been waiting here for some questions. So just, I promise we'll get to it, brother. Jeff, if you want to go ahead and ask, Casey, if you don't mind unmuting him.
There? Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, thank y'all. I'm up here in Parkman, Wyoming, and we're running a close to a 40 sow pig operation up here. We started with 2 sows or 2 pigs, but not 4 years ago. And we've been jamming and going hard. We've worked our markets, we've worked our customers. I've worked my product and my genetics, like you talked about. Farmer, I don't know anybody, and I apologize, Mr. Mark or something like that. I want to know how a guy starts getting out of debt from the first debt you started with. It seems like I'm spinning my wheels on what I'm doing. My product is phenomenal. I'm in a 1 meat market already, and that's been consistent for the last couple of years. We primarily raise Berkshires, and we do a few crosses. We've also gotten deep into the 4-H world, selling piglets and getting those breeding times and scheduling all of that and working with those children as well. I just can't figure out, no matter what I charge or no matter what I do on prices. I'm at $3 a pound live weight right now. And it seems like we're making money until the feed bill hits. When the feed bill hits, my geographical location makes it extremely hard because I'm in cattle country raising pigs. So finding the granaries, finding all of my products that I need, I've got to drive hundreds of miles or have it delivered. So I'm always paying extra for that. So at what point in time do you just lock it down and tell your customers, this is the prices, this is what it's going to take for me to, how do you go about that? I'm the furthest thing from a businessman. I work with these. My wife does the brains and the smarts. I go out, I dig, I'll bleed, I'll work, and I'll give it all. Casey's followed me. He knows this.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. I hear you. I'm with you, Jeff. All right. So my first question is, how many of your and you've got a fairly diversified blend of customers, sounds like. How many of your customers are complaining about price?
We kind of ran into it for the very first time recently because we're going farm to table now, and we're doing our own butchering, and we're getting things in a forward motion in that direction. I've got my huge walk-ins. I've got all my assets needed to do this. We had a guy call us in a panic. I got to have this meat. I got to have this meat. And he ordered 35 pounds of pork from us. Well, when it's processed, cut up, seasoned, brined, cured, smoked, stored, that's all extra cost. Electric bills, propane.
Right.
And we get all the way to town and we drop this meat off from $350 down to $220. Well, here we are sitting there with.
Now, wait. You're putting the blame on him. You're blaming him. Let's talk about extreme ownership here. Who owns the price of those animals? You own the price of those animals, or your customer own the price?
I own it.
Yeah. The customer doesn't know how much it costs you to produce them, right?
Correct.
And so, so the fact that this is your first big pushback. Look, nobody likes to be, negotiated down or pushed down on price. But there's let me mention a couple rules of thumb here. A couple rules of thumb is, number one, if 10% of your customers are not routinely complaining about price, you're not high enough.
I've had people tell me it should be more.
Okay, the reason that's an important rule of thumb is because we humans, we are hardwired to remember what's negative. Man, you can go out and get praise all day, but if one person complains or says a negative thing to you, that's what you remember when you go to bed at night. You don't remember all that.
True.
That's why we call them stoplights and not go lights. Nobody comes home from town and says, sweetie, guess what? I hit 5 go lights in town today. We don't talk about the go lights. We talk about the stoplights. We know what stops us, not what makes us go. And so when I say, if 10% of your customers are not complaining about price, you're not high enough, that's a good litmus test to know what's possible. There's an entire science of price pointing. It's called price pointing. And the fact is, we've audited ourselves here at Polyface several times. We never cease to be amazed. We just discover where we're leaving pennies on the table. For example, the difference between something that's $6.79 and $6.99 to the customer, that's nothing. To us, it's 20 cents a pound.
A lot.
Sure, it's a lot. And
pennies
so,
add up.
They do. And so that price pointing is a big deal. And so my sense is, that you've got to be willing to walk. You say, well, here's how much it costs me to grow it. Here's how much it is. They can't argue with that. They can't tell you how much it costs to grow it. They don't know. And so you force them, you in a very non-confrontational, nice way, you force them to disagree with something that they're ignorant about. Well, that's not a position of strength. You're in a position of negotiating strength because you know they don't know. So you don't argue price. You just say, well, this is what it costs for me to stay in business. And I'm sorry if it doesn't work for you. And if it doesn't, I've got other people that it does work for. Thank you very much. And when you want in, the door's wide and we'll welcome you in. And we'd love to have you in, but we can't have you in if we go out of business. It's a very diplomatic, kind, gracious way to hold your ground. You see, the problem is we farmers, we often don't respect ourselves enough to hold the ground on these kinds of things. People tell us we're just dumb farmers, we're just dirt farmers, we're, blue collar. I mean, there's every kind of societal
I hear that.
kind of marginal phrase, right? I mean, they tell me that, you're just a farmer. I'm on the Mike Bloomberg, business show in New York, well, where's your suspenders and your straw hat? I want to say, well, what do you want me to do? Bring in some hay chaff in my hair? When I wear a 3-piece business suit and I go in there, and you only get the amount of respect that you have for yourself. And so this conversation you're having starts with how much do I respect myself? And when you get over that hump of I'm producing the best pork in Wyoming and I'm doing a good job at it and I love it and I want to continue to love it by being compensated enough to continue to love it and to take the wife out to dinner once in a while and retire my debt and feel good about this, when you respect yourself enough that much to look in the mirror and have that conversation, you'll stand your ground with somebody that's trying to, pull your price down.
Negotiating the prices.
The final thing I'll say about this is I heard this at I did a conference. I heard another guy talking about marketing, and it just was so great. He said, never use the word price. This is the price. You know what word you use? There's not a single word. There's not a single time where you use the word price that you can't use the word invest. That completely changes the conversation. Instead of saying the price is, you say the investment is. Price sounds like a negative. I've got to pay this much. But everybody wants to invest. They want to invest in something. So that is like one of these, clever word speak things where if you will have, instead of a price list, if you will have an investment list, okay, trust me, take this back to your wife, sit down and
She's
talk
sitting
about
right here with us.
Okay. Talk about the conversations you have where you use the word price to people and start thinking about using the word investment and see how it sounds to you. And I think that will help you come to this point also. And finally, just margins. Look, I don't know what your feed costs are, but anything that you can do to bulk pack, bulk purchase,
Yes.
Shave some pennies. Yeah, shave some pennies off of that cost. Reduce the amount of labor in feeding. If you're running sows, you're probably hand feeding, so it's hard to bulk feed because you can't get them too fat. So think about just trying to make the labor more efficient to be able to offer limited feeding to these guys.
And I've done as much as that as possible, and I now have an 18-year-old kid living and working here, like you started speaking out in the beginning,
Right.
You can't do it all your own. And I've been
Right.
trying for 4 years to do it on my own, and I can't get there. So
Yeah.
I've got the labor and I've got the time management, like you're talking about. Each task should take this long, and it should not take any longer.
Right.
Getting somebody that's not invested into it, like the owners are, and getting them to put their heart and soul into it, that's a different story. And that's
So is he working hourly, or is
No.
he working by you get paid so much to take care of these 20 sows?
he gets paid monthly, and he gets $100 a week to complete all tasks. Not only that, he gets room and board and
Oh, okay.
his free time. He's 18 years old. I don't kill him too.
Yeah.
So-
Fair enough. It sounds
You know-
like you got something that works there.
I put a lot of structure into it and a lot of deal. The other thing is we bring in a lot of the disabled veterans now from the home,
Right.
coordinated for the day, and give them a project and give them some positive and get that going. And it's all been building my business name, my reputation, all of this other stuff. And it's been helping immensely because I've got people that'll come to me and say, okay, I know you got the best pork. When can I get on the list? Like that have been building up and been working. But and like you said, start getting into the grain products in bulk. I finally did some brewing. I was able to get some self feeders for my grower pen. That has taken off 2 hours every day. That shaved it off right there.
Yeah, great.
And then grain silos and having an auger and a efficient grinders, things like that. I've been building it all up and making it work. And I got the time efficiency to things, but I still can't bury the damn debt following me. I can't, can't get out of that.
Yeah, well, the fact is your business is young. I mean, you're only 4 years in.
Correct.
And you're growing. And all young growing businesses are starved for cash. And you might not be able to retire that debt. But I hope that you've got to run a positive margin. And if you run enough positive margin, you should be able to start chipping away. I mean, if I were you, I would set down kind of a laundry list. 2020, 2021, 2022, a laundry list, and say, what you do is you work your budget backwards. You say, what would it take for me to knock $10,000 off of this legacy debt, if you will? We'll call it legacy debt. Can I knock 10,000 off of that? What would it take next year? It might take raising your prices a quarter. It might take dropping your feed prices if you can get some of this bulk stuff and you can drop, a penny or 2 pennies a pound off your feed costs. That could do it. In other words, think about the combinations. Think about the combinations that you could do, whether it's expansion, whether it's raising prices, dropping expenses. In other words, you got turnover, you got expenses, you got income. Those are the three things you're working with. And think about what combination of those three things you can plug in to retire $10,000 next year. Okay. And if you can put that down on paper so that it happens on paper, chances are you'll have a lot better chance of getting it done in the future. What happens is, you feel like you're doing the best you can do, and you probably are. Perhaps you're being efficient, but you're not yet being completely effective. And there's a big difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency can be doing the wrong project very efficiently. Efficiency can be hitting the bullseye of the wrong target. That's efficient. Effective is knowing what the target is you got to shoot at.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between efficiency and effectiveness. And most of us get caught up on efficiency. Wow, look how much I'm getting done. And we miss on what gives us the greatest the effectiveness of our effort.
But see, if you blow through a project, if you blow through a project, especially when you're teaching somebody and you cut corners, that you just wasted your time. You wasted every bit of efficiency all the way around. So, being efficient is doing the project one time, one and done, solid. My fences are good. No worries for the next 6-8 months, whatever. I'm tracking on your efficiency, but my geographical location, and I live in a very small rural community in Sheridan, Wyoming, and it's really hoity-toity, high-end people. And when they tell me my prices of pork are, and this is a very few situations like you just brought up, my price is very cheap. We're, $3 a pound live weight. Package deal, $850 out the door, and I butcher. That's all your cuts, cures, everything involved. That's a smoking deal all the way across the board in my region. I still can't get enough money for those pigs to completely cover just their feed bills alone, because I got to have corn shipped from the Hardin area from, 200-300 miles away, because there is no corn structure here. There is nobody that sells So you have to outsource. Then you get into that issue with the people of no GMOs, no hormones.
Right.
I want to make sure you're using red corn and not yellow corn. I've gotten to the point where I tell the people, okay, look, they're fed the best that I can possibly feed them, keeping them healthy, doing injections when it is required and when it is not. It doesn't, you balance this customer act here. Some people want this perfect meat, and other people, they understand they're pigs. They took 6 months to grow, and we're moving them out the door, but they expect it to be $2-3.
Yeah, well, for sure. Look, you can't be all things to all men. You can't satisfy everybody. And there are some customers that are simply, they're not good customers. They either want it to be too cheap, or they want too many, nuances, too many things around. And you've got to hit a, we have some chefs that want, Cooney pigs or whatever. And, okay, that's fine. They can get them from someone else, but they're not going to get them from us. And so, this is part of your messaging and your shtick, your story, your narrative. Maybe you could fill in some niches with some other things that you could build around the pigs. Do some chickens, do some beef, sell something from a neighbor that's doing something else. Honey. I mean, we collaborate with a dozen neighbor farmers that are doing things that we're not doing. Everything from homemade soap to kombucha to whatever.
So,
so you take your customer base and you take customers that are spending $1,000 with you and you turn them into $2,000 customers, and you become the brand name, and the person that makes the sale owns the customer. And so if you can hang some other complementary aspects around this enterprise, including on-farm events, do a hay ride. We do 12 hay rides a year. We charge $20 a seat for 100 adults. And that brings in $24,000. And while they're here, they spend $1,000. So we generate $36,000 a year, just farm hay rides. Every one of those people becomes the most loyal customer in the world because it's beautiful, it's cool, and now they're informed. And you could grill some sausages and offer them free on the grill when folks came, or bratwurst or something. The point is, you have to make margin or you don't stay in business. I mean, I hear your frustration. Okay, so don't be frustrated. Fix it.
I'm working on that.
And there's a bunch of ways to fix it, is what I'm getting at. And so don't limit yourself. It might take everything from events to an on-farm dinner to something legal to something illegal. I don't really care. But the point is, you simply can't continue where you're headed because you're not headed in a good direction.
I feel like we are climbing. I do feel like we are getting better. I just wanted to know if there was certain things that you've done that just cut your debt down and just stop what you're doing and still moving your assets. Yeah, making it. And I'm understanding and I'm tracking what you answered, and I really appreciate it. It's going to help a lot.
Good.
Get there. Thank you.
All right, guys. First of all, that was a great question, Jeff. I hope that helped you out. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to send you an email about spent brewers grains. They literally cost $0, and I could probably ship you 1,500 pounds. It's they have to pay down here to get rid of it, and it is packed with protein because it's just boiled. It's good stuff, kind of like cotton boll. Old cotton bowls and stuff like that they use in feedlots and what have you.
Well, like the gentleman just said, networking, dangling certain other entities over that customer's head. And I'm doing that. I use Truly Beef. I raise no beef. I do nothing but pork. So Truly Beef, they're literally my neighbors, and they network us and we network them. And then we've got a chicken farmer down the way. She raises chickens plus eggs. So we got out of that stuff because it was burying my debt. I couldn't afford it. And we stuck with just our pigs, and we're moving that route now. And spent brewer's grain, I've got to drive 2.5 hours out of my way to get on the train to get them. And it's literally $250 a ton.
Oh wow, yeah. I tell you what, man. In the interest of moving forward, I'll
Yeah,
I'll
that's
call you up.
what we can
Yeah, I'll
be.
call you up.
Roger
Mark,
that.
Mark Tucker, I think, had the next question. Go for it, Mark.
Oh, right on. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for that question. Have my brain synapses firing, man. Yeah, some really good stuff. And I'm kind of digressing from the question that I had, because Mr. Saladin's been just answering so many questions. But specifically to Jeff, and I know this is Mr. Saladin's time, as you were talking, a few things popped up in my mind that I could send you offline. But something that really helped us is, I know that you're trying to figure out how to like make this all work. And something that my wife came up with was incorporating like payment plans. You know, that's a lot less of a bite for a family that's spending $850 to $1,250 for a whole hog, is when they can pay it in installments. Not only are they with you, you know, throughout, you know, quarterly or monthly or whatever, as the pig grows, but they're like part of this growth with you. It's not just, okay, cool, I'm going to get a pig and pay him the $850 cash and then it's a done deal. But there's kind of a growth that goes along with that. And that's really helped us. And we've seen the change in this last year utilizing payment plans. And it was my wife that came up with it. And the only other thing I was thinking of was like growing your own feed. You know, there was a farmer I'd met down at the North Carolina Meat Conference that goes on biannual, and just being around other farmers that are kind of doing the same thing. You know, is there a way that you can get into like growing your own feed? You know, and if you can grow your own feed, I personally, you know, I use an Amish settlement that's an hour and a half away. You know, I know the product that I'm getting, it's cash and carry. These are upstanding folks and we have a great relationship. You may not, you know, have that, you know, because you have to have it shipped in. But, you know, seeing if there's an Amish or a Mennonite settlement that's around you that does all this stuff, that's cash and carry, so that you're not taking on the grounding of your own feed, and that takes time out of what it is you're doing there. As I know Mr. Saladin was talking about the reduction of expense. I don't even mess with the feed. I just pay for the feed up front, and you know, that gives me more time, and time for me gives me an opportunity to do so many other things, whether it's doing side work in order to invest into the business, or just being able to fill that emotional bank account for my wife, and it, you know, fixing things or hanging out with my kids and doing other things as well. But the question that I'm at deals specifically with the reduction of expense, Mr. Saladin, and I know that T&E, that's your butcher shop, is a phenomenal shop. We've sent some hogs through there before, and you guys are USDA certified. So my question is this: is, you know, we reduce expense by utilizing a local butcher paper butcher. They do great work. We really enjoy utilizing them, and it cuts costs for us and for our customers, which has been great. What is your take in our market? I'm not a farmer's market kind of guy. I'm not, you know, mailing people meat. I'm not doing any of that. It's very small, and it's a very intimate kind of relationship that we have with our customers. And I don't want to do farmers markets. That's not my thing. But just what your take is when it comes down to making that decision as to, do I stick with butcher paper, or do I stick with USDA, or do I go to USDA? just what your take is.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say butcher paper, are you saying that that's a custom slaughterhouse? The packages are stamped not for sale?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, actually for Jeff, I was thinking as I heard you responding to him and realized that I did not ask him if he's selling meat by the cut. Probably the best thing that we ever did to value add our hogs was to go away from the custom, half and whole, and go to pieces. And that does create an inventory issue. But again, you use it for for your retail, for your retail inventory, and the stuff that's high, you go higher. The stuff that's hard to sell, and so when I'm hearing him say he gets $850 for a hog, we're getting right now, about $1,100 to $1,200 per hog on average, and so we want our minimal margin after everything's paid: labor, feed, processing costs, marketing. We pay a 5% marketing commission to the people, to our sales force that does the sales calls. So 5%, so if we sell a hog for, $1,000, $50 comes off as a 5% marketing commission for the marketers. And the point I'm getting at is that the retail by the cut gives you some investing instead of pricing, some investing wiggle room that you don't have, and it increases your potential customers probably 20-fold, because now suddenly you're getting people that'll come in and get one package of sausage, one package of pork chops, and that is a huge market potential, as opposed to people that'll buy bulk volume.
And that was a really good question, Mark. Specifically to piggyback off of Jeff, that was the whole what do you call it, niche market of selling. The coolest thing I've ever seen, guys, was this thing called Community Cow. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Joel, but you go in and say, I want to pay. You click on it with your mouse and you say, I want to buy 10% of this cow, and it's going to cost X amount. Yeah. That gives you so many cuts of something. Guys, don't try to put yourself in a box. I believe that you're really doing yourself like, well, I only want to do this, and Jeff, that would work wonders for you. You really need to take that and run with it. Try to package it in a smaller thing where you get even more price, but it costs the customer less because you have a niche that you're feeling. I have a question for you, and Mr. Salatin, and this is kind of a combination between me and a guy that couldn't make it on today, but this is in reference to growing, and I'll just ask it very plain English. How do you know when you're ready to grow? Because I think Jeff has been asking that without asking it outright. Like, how do you know when it's time for you to bring someone else on, or, when is your overhead going to make it past that 5-year mark of just clearing yourself? How do you know when to invest back into yourself is the best way I could answer this, or ask it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. One is when you feel like you have mastery that you can duplicate with basically the flick of your finger. Can you teach it? Can you duplicate it fairly, can you write an SOP? Can you duplicate? Do you feel like you've mastered this, or are you still feeling like, well, when I get up this morning, what's going to be my crisis today? If you're waking up in the morning wondering what your crisis is going to be for the day, it's probably not time to grow, because the fact is that innovation takes a lot of money, and you can't innovate every part of your business. You've got to innovate in like a sawtooth, pieces at a time. That's also why you can't start too many enterprises at one time. You start one or two things, you develop mastery, and then when their margin is profitable, then they finance your next enterprise or your next income thread. So you can't be innovating everything at one time, or you'll go broke. So as far as how do you know when to grow to add labor, I think it's 1 minute before you drop dead. In other words, if it's just the sheer workload, it's either 1 minute before you drop dead or you get a divorce, one or the t'other. But then that's when you know it's time to add labor, and that labor, of course, can only be added if you really feel like you're a master over what you're doing. I think in general, and I'm being careful to be general here. Growth generally does not affect profit in general, because what happens is when you grow, you add labor cost, you add infrastructure cost, you add, for us, for example, we had to start paying for sales calls, 5% commission on marketing. Okay. So what happens is, if you're expecting growth to put you on easy street, that's not a reason to grow, because it won't. It just changes the crises. It just changes the things you're dealing with. Now you have more people. Now you got to deal with more relationships. Now you got to massage expectations. And, well, did you really mean that? Yes. Did I instruct you? Well, did you understand this? No, you didn't understand that. I mean, you've got a million different things. So growth is not a growth for growth's sake is not a goal that's good. But if you feel comfortable where you are, and you've got customers that want product, and you feel comfortable that, yeah, we could add another 20 hogs, 50 hogs, or whatever it is, widgets, then don't be scared of growth, but don't expect growth to fix your problems. Growth will only multiply your problems if you're not running a pretty clean ship at the beginning. This is why at our farm, people, they come up with an idea. Generally in our culture, people come up with an idea, say, oh, wow, how big could that be? Every time we brainstorm and think about other things that we could do, our first question is, how small can it be? Because if you can't make it work functionally and efficiently small, there's nothing about growing it that'll make it any easier. It'll just complicate everything in your life. And so we don't have growth plans. We never say, well, this year we had $1 million in sale. Next year we won $1.1 million. We do know that we have overheads, and we need to have a certain amount of sales in order to break even, but we have zero desire, and we don't even write down those kinds of financial goals that make some sort of a money figure our litmus test on whether we had a successful year or not. There are lots of ways to have a successful year. I mean, one way would be to make half as much money and have twice as much time to spend with your spouse. Would that be a successful year? To many of us, it would. All right. And so there's a lot of different ways to define success besides just, increasing sales. And so I think that's where our mission statement comes in to help steer us and moor us to our true value chain and not get enamored that growth. Look, if you feel like you're on a what is it, a rat race, if you feel like you're on a rat race right now, trust me, growth will not help your rat race. You have to come to a place in your life where you don't feel like you're on a rat race, and that'll be when you're ready to grow.
Man, phenomenal answer, sir. Really. That was fantastic. So, Mr. Salatin, I think we're going to close it out with this. And I want to say from all of us here at the apprenticeship program, I appreciate all of your time. You've given me, and I work for the extension, a lot of things to think about. Everybody, this has been recorded. I just want to let y'all know, so we'll send it out to you in case you guys want to look over it. And Mr. Salatin, when the time comes for the government to allow us to travel again, we will be coming out to Polyface Farms, and
we'd be honored and delighted to have every one of you. It would be a great day for us.
I think it would be great for all of us. And again, we appreciate your time and your wealth of knowledge. And thank you so much for taking this out of your day, especially being the farmer that you are. Everybody, thank you so much for joining on. Thank you for all of your amazing questions. I mean, these questions today were really, really deep and detailed. And that was great.
They were good. They were good.
Yes, sir. Casey, you have anything else? Oh. Well, then I guess we'll sign off, everybody. Thank you. We'll see y'all next week.
Great.
All right.
Have a great 4th of July.
You too, guys. You have a great 4th of July, everyone, as well. Bye now.